Oh, you talking her. Go ahead.
I didn't frame this question before I arrived, so I may fumble a little bit here, but as legislators, you all have the luxury of thinking, I guess maybe philosophically, about our society in a different way from dealing day to day with laws that somebody wants you to pass or some committee has drawn up. And I'm not meaning to minimize the importance of that, of course, but do you have the luxury of thinking philosophically about our society? And this is a national figure, but I think we have something like, is it 400 million people in the country, 300 something million, and 33 million of them are in prison.
No, it's less than that.
What?
About 1.5%. It's in the 3 to 4 million.
3 to 4 million folks in the country in prison.
So it's still a lot.
Still a whole lot.
I mean, these, you know,
Figure Neyland Stadium holds 100,000, so you do the math. I mean, it's a lot of people.
yeah, and
The question.
and so my point is that, do you all think in terms of how, and I know education is a huge part of that, but some other way you can get at the grassroots of the people in our state so that this doesn't develop?
Again, back to, it's a cultural question. Again, back to the cultural question. Harry?
It goes back to education.
I know you're education chair, yes.
Really, health, if you look at all the research, health issues,
Right?
the more educated we are, we have fewer health problems. The more
Right,
educated
yes.
we are, the fewer issues in reference to what you're addressing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this society, once we begin functioning around the critical nature and the importance of education, some of these other things will take care of themselves, in my opinion.
Okay, then may I, were you going to say?
Well, just on that, just in general, absolutely. I mean, I think every one of us up here are in public service because we want to make a difference. I mean, I've got 3 daughters, they're 28, 26, and 24, and by the way, they're right here in Knoxville somewhere today shopping for wedding dresses, okay? I got one daughter got married last June. I got another one getting married May 22nd. Another daughter getting married August the 28th, and in between there's a little primary I'm interested in.
Good thing we're
Wallet's going to be a little light.
Good thing we're picking up your lunch.
Thank you for picking up my lunch. I appreciate that. I leave every dime I can get. So I do worry about that, and soon I'll have grandkids. I like to tell them I'm ready for grandkids. I want everything done in the right order, though, if you don't care. And so I do. So I do worry about that. I mean, you lay awake at night. I lay awake at night thinking that we got demographics in our society that 7 out of 10 of the children born are born to single parents. I mean, think about that. How that's changing our society. I sat with TEA this morning and listened to them about how we can improve education, but how do we get those parents involved? You go to a PTA meeting when my kids were in school, and you look at the people sitting around a PTA meeting, the ones that were there aren't the ones that needed to be there. The ones that needed to be there weren't there. And how do we get them involved? You think about higher education in general, and you do, and Greg asked this, how do you get people to actually focus on this, and how do you make a sea change? Sure, we have 44 out of 100 going, but how do we get that up to 60 out of 100 going? So yes, I think about this kind of stuff all the time as you're sitting around, hey, trying to get there, and how we can affect that in public policy. And I'm not a big government kind of guy, so has actually big government caused some of this? As opposed, and especially the 7 out of 10 single parents, I think big government has caused that some, to be honest, on that. So how do we back up from those policies and change that? So yes, I think about those big picture questions all the time and figure out how you mold that into the policy we make every day. So absolutely yes, for me at least.
Governor, I think this kind of dovetails with what you're talking about as soon as you got into big government. Thought this might be a good segue. You know, the healthcare debate obviously is taking place on the national level, but there's a states' rights issue that is really coming up in this debate. And it's something that, like it or not, may very well, it's closer than any other time in history, may very well land in your lap, either as potentially as governor or as lieutenant governor. And for all of you in elected office, I mean, this is something you're going to have to deal with And everyone's thinking about healthcare and its ramifications, but there are obviously trickle-down ramifications with regard to states' rights. I don't really have a question. I just want to get your feel on states' rights. How are you going to deal with, being told this is from D.C. This is what you have to do? Do it.
Absolutely, and that once again, I hate when politicians stand up and say that's an excellent question. I've never heard a politician stand up and say that is a dumb question. I've never heard that. Every politician always stands up and says that is an excellent question. You know what? That is an excellent question. But anyway. Exactly. One time I want a politician to stand up and say that's a dumb question. But anyway. Okay. That's another one of these big picture kind of questions that you worry about, where I'm talking about just a second ago. How do you solve this? How do we get this? This isn't something that happened overnight. I think we really started back in the 1930s, but really in the 60s with the Great Society and all, we saw the federal government getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I like to give the analogy that you got the old frog you've heard about. You put in a pot and slowly turn up the heat, and it'll sit there until it boils itself to death. Well, I think with the climate in Washington, D.C. right now, they've turned that pot on high. And people are realizing, whoa, is this exactly what we want? So how do you scale this back? Back in about August, I got to go to Sun Valley, Idaho, to the Republican Governors Association meeting, and I didn't really want to go to the meeting, to be honest. I was leaving the next day to go to the beach with my family, but I was encouraged to go out there as a candidate. And I got to sit around a table with literally right beside me was Jeb Bush, and there was Haley Barbour, and Bobby Jindal, and Rick Perry from Texas, and on and on. And I can see that other governors across the state, Democrats and Republicans, are worried about this exact same thing. And I think that's where you're going to see the revolution, just as our governor called this the mother of all unfunded mandates. And you're going to see a revolution among the governors across the state, that you're going to start seeing some pushback. I mean, the average person walking down the street out here realizes, this gentleman says, you can't borrow $1.4 trillion and looks like it's going to be bigger than that this year, and do that time and again, expect this country to stay the same. It's not. And I just think Washington, D.C. is so out of touch with the ordinary people that it's going to take governors banding together and saying, we're not taking this anymore. And I can see that coming right now, that we're getting this close to that. And maybe that's the good thing that's coming out of what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now. People realize that government's going too fast, too quick. Let's stop.
Questions?